This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. I'm Charli McConnell, your host, and today we have Doreen Godfrey. Doreen is a motivational mama and Instagram influencer who shares affordable fashion and great finds on Instagram. She was born and raised in Queens, New York. She's also a wife and a mom to 3 girls, a dancer, choreographer, and fellow entrepreneur. I learned recently that Doreen and I have much more in common than I could have ever imagined, and I'm so happy to learn more about her story. Welcome, Doreen.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and see your beautiful face.
I'm so excited to do this. We've been trying to get this on the books for a while, so it feels like perfect timing. And also, we talked before we recorded, when I read your intake form, I always have everyone that comes on the podcast fill out a couple of questions. It kind of gives me a little bit of background. And the paragraph you wrote, I was like, damn, Doreen, I did not know we had so much in common. So welcome. I'm excited you're here. Before we dive into like all the things we have in common,
Yes.
tell me a little bit, where do you live now? Tell me a little bit about you outside of the bio that I gave.
So I am now in Darien, Connecticut. So I live with my husband, Connor, and my 3 beautiful girls. And they're all competitive dancers. So I had owned a dance studio in Darien. I moved here and I was like, oh, I see this like little niche for these kids to be able to do something that wasn't uber like all in on dance, like something that they could just also, because it's a big sports town. So I wanted them to get a little taste of it and, just get that motivation, that confidence. And I've since sold the studio, which is super exciting. It still lives. One of my employees bought it. And now, I really am able to focus on my girls and their dance career. And just, I'm really helping a lot of women right now too, like with their business and helping them on social media, which I love. This is why I was so excited to be on your podcast, because I'm so excited to build other women up, to help them with their business, to see them thrive and succeed. So all of that, plus lots of dancing, makes me super happy.
I didn't realize you were helping. You've helped me a ton since we first met. You were like, I've got the Instagram game. I've been doing it for years. You have a ton of followers. And so when I first started, you were the first person I'd go to, like, okay, how do I do this? And you're always so quick to support and like and all of the things, which I love you for.
Thank
Um,
you.
And it totally checks out that you're doing that for other people too. I love that. And your girls in dance, if you follow Doreen, you know that that's a full-time job.
Whew, yeah. They dance like 20 to 25 hours a week. They're on the elite team at the Spot, which is in Westport, and they love it. I mean, Charli, I tried everything. I was like, let's do soccer, volleyball, Girl Scouts. One of my girls worked at a wonderful crafting studio in town, which is another women-owned business that I adore. And they all were like, Mom, I really want to dance. And I was like, you don't have to do what I do. And they were
I
like,
don't
no,
want to diversify. I want to stay right in my niche. Yeah. I
yeah.
love
And
it.
they're brilliant at it and they love it. And I like that they have found what it was for me growing up was, no matter what I went through in my life, I knew I had dance. I knew at the end of the day, I had that studio and I poured my emotion into it. And that's why I really love it. I love sharing that with my students through Instagram. I love that when people see, like, I posted something today for Monday where I'm dancing around and I'm just like, do your thing, start the week off dancing. We always finish the week off on Friday with another dance, and people are like, oh, I love it. I'm dancing with you in my kitchen. And I'm like, that's all I want. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. So anyone listening or watching this, Doreen and her girls do like full choreographed dances on her Instagram reels, and they are so good. Your girls are, first of all, like their
Yeah.
heights and everything. It's like perfect little, like just in a line, and they're great dancers. And you do the dances
Thank
with them.
you.
I love it so much. My daughter and I dance all the time, but definitely not anything choreographed. It's like just jumping up and down in our kitchen. But still, that's the point, right? Is to get out there
The
and have
whole
fun.
point. Yes, it doesn't have to be perfect. And ironically, my middle daughter, Taylor, and I, we were like butting heads a lot and because we're the same person, you know? And my husband was like, you need to fix this. Like this is not going to be good for you. So over COVID, we were just like, I came over to her like, you never know how the teenagers are going to react. And I'm like, so you want to learn this dance with me? Like, what do you think? And she was like, okay. And we learned this dance and we posted it and it did really well. And then there was a dance that had just come out and I said, come on, let's just go to the driveway and record it really quick. So we did that. And I guess we were only like the third person to do it. And it blew up. And all of a sudden the comments were in like other languages and I had to hit see translation. And I was like,
Oh my
what
God.
are people saying? And that kind of like just blew us up and we started, working with lots of different companies and that's what's so fun too. I love promoting other companies but doing it in our own unique way like through dance. So it's fun.
Oh my God. I love all of that. I love your Instagram page. I love seeing all the dancing. I love seeing your stories when you guys have your long dance weekends, all of that. So
Thank
really cool to hear how all of that started. So fun.
thank
Um, okay, so I want to dig in to some of the big things we have in common. And I want to start with just giving you space to tell your story because I think it is going to be really impactful, at least for me. If no one else listens to this, it will be
yeah.
beautiful to hear your story and then to be able to share mine with you too. So tell me a little bit about your story, your childhood, all the
Yes.
things.
So it's kind of a very I mean until I found out yours, but it's kind of like a unique story. But it's ironic, the more that I feel like I'm sharing it, the more people are opening up and saying, "Wow, I've had something similar," or along those lines. But I have the most incredible mother, and I am the second born and for a good majority of my life. So she got divorced from her first husband, and I thought that he was my dad. Like I was like, okay, that's my dad. I just don't know him. They're divorced, whatever. And then it was like I was in some like talented and gifted program in school. And we had to do this family tree. And it was all about like, this one goes there, and what's your blood type, and what's your this. And I was like, none of this adds up. This is a disaster. I don't know what to write. Doesn't make any sense. I know nothing about this other side of the family. And I just got so mad and I slammed the door. You don't do that in my
Mm.
house. You don't slam doors. So my mom came in and I was expecting her to be like, wow. But instead, she's like, okay, we need to go for a walk. And we went
Ooh.
for a walk. And she was just like, so the reason that it doesn't add up is because that's not your father. And I was 7 years old. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And I don't think, Charlie, it hit me until my oldest daughter turned 7. That's when it was like, ooh,
Mm.
wow, you're 7. Like I would never think to tell you something with, of this like gravity, that would change your life. But at the time she was like, I guess she's like, you're a very intuitive, smart kid. And, you were going to ask a lot of questions. So she told me who my father was. And she's like, this is kind of the story. And you were born out of love, but it was an affair. They knew each other from childhood when my mother was born in Italy, so they knew each other from Italy. When they had come to America, the timing just was not right. But then I came along. So it was odd because I knew of him as like a family friend.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, I like that guy. He's cool. He always brought me like, chocolate. And I was like, what's not to like when you're 7? But then she was like, no, this is your father. And she really did tell me the story, how it was like out of love, but it was a lot to soak in. And it was also difficult because he's married And I had a brother and sister on that side that did not know about me.
Mm.
And nobody really, oh, I love when this happens. Sometimes when I talk with my hands, these incredible things that I need to, I'm so Italian and so like,
Listen, if no one's watching this video, if you're only listening, fireworks just went off on Doreen's screen and it was perfect timing.
God,
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
like who knew that it was like the mic drop and just put fireworks behind me. Oh
I
my
love
God,
it.
I keep my hand still. Oh my gosh, that it was so funny. That was so funny.
That's a good
Uh,
mood shift, though, like
it was
bringing it back up. Yeah, I love it.
so crazy. So yeah, so I was it was life changing, obviously. And a lot of people didn't know, and I wasn't allowed to tell people. And to have a brother and sister that you don't know of is is hard. And like the situation just was really difficult, and I had to just roll with it for a long time. And I think that would is going to make a lot more sense now when I say that dance was really um life changing for me, because I danced through my emotions. I poured my heart out on that stage when I would compete or do anything like that, because it was my place to really just be me. And it's hard. It's hard. I went to high school with my brother and sister, and I knew that they were my brother and sister, and they did not. No. Yeah.
Wow.
So I have an older brother on that side, and my sister is the same age as me. Yeah. So, and it was, once they did find out, it wasn't until I graduated college.
Mm.
So once we found that out, that was really hard for all of us, because there was a bomb in their life too. They're like, what the heck? Like, who are you? What's going on? And I befriended my sister in high school so that I can get to know her. And she just didn't know that I was her sister. So it's crazy that the things that really, I think it shaped me. And to this day, it shapes everything I do, every decision I make. Um, and I feel very blessed to have had, and I grew up with a lot of love. Like my mother just loved the heck out of me. She's hard on me. She's tough, but loved the heck out of me. And I had my grandmother who, no matter what, she always made me feel like you are here for a reason. You are a special person. And you you are going to give back to this world. And I think I approach every day with that, because I'm like, I know that I'm here for a reason. I may not have been planned,
Mhm.
but sometimes the best things in life I think aren't planned. And I was telling you previously, I think I'm my own therapist. My husband laughs. He's like, you're your own therapist. And I think when I look, when I was trying to write a bio for you or whatever, I kept crossing things out. I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, I've lived so many lives. Like I think about, I sang in a girl group. I, sang for the Pope once. I was thinking
Oh,
about like, I worked at 17 magazine. I worked at Z100. I worked in fashion. I owned two businesses. I was like, wow, I've lived I feel like a lot of different lives, and I feel like I've lived each of them to the fullest. And there's nothing in my life that I could say I didn't try or really go for. And I think my past is, and who I am is because of this story. I think in the best way possible. It may not have been the easiest, and it's not some like fairy tale, like no daddy daughter dances for me and things like that, but it makes me cherish things a lot more, especially the relationship that Connor has with my girls, the relationship I have with them. It's very honest, very truthful from day one. And I just always want to like live life that way, and also bring other people like up, always
mm.
like let's go. Let's, whatever this journey is, whatever you have got going on, that's okay. We all have a past. We all have crazy stuff that has happened in our lives, but how are we going to let it shape us? Are we going to look at life and say, I shouldn't be here. I wasn't loved. I wasn't. No, my grandmother was like, no, 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 no. That is not how we're going to be. We're going to look at life and say, look at all these gifts you've been given, and you're going to give back in any way that you can. And that's what I try to continue to do, as much as possible. But I do realize, and this is like, I don't know if other people can relate to this. I think I did so much as a kid, and I continued to as an adult. I never like learned how to say no, and I had to be the best at everything. Like I don't know how to do things in a small way.
Mhm.
I'm like, I am just gonna open that business and run that gala and raise the most amount of money for that company and build this person. Like I don't know how to do anything small.
Mm.
And this is gonna be, I hope the fireworks don't go off again after I say it. I realized I sat down, and this is pretty recently, I would say. I was like, why am I always striving for this like greatness? And I just kind of hit me one day and I said, I think growing up, I had to prove to myself and to other people, no, I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to be the best at everything, and no one can say that I wasn't put here on purpose. And it takes time, and I think a lot of self-discovery. And after I had sold the dance studio, I think that's when I realized like I don't need that. I don't need a business. I don't need a label to be my identity. I'm enough. Just me. Just as a mom, just as a wife. And that takes a long time to get there. And there are days that I'm still like, why am I not at this many followers? Why am I not like, doing this, that, or the other thing? And you play the comparison game. And then I have to take that deep breath and just really be like, no, you have done so much. You don't need to prove to anyone anymore that you're good enough, that you are serving a purpose in this world. Cause I know I am. I look at my girls every day. I look at my husband, and now I can look at myself in the mirror and say, yeah,
Mm.
you you got this, girl. Like you don't need these accolades or
Yeah.
anything to prove that you are worth it.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Um, I feel like as adults, so much of like the healing is healing the child version of us in like varying stages, varying chapters, and maybe not even a child. Maybe it was in your teenager years or your 20s or whatever, but it's giving permission or gratitude, sympathy, whatever it
Mhm.
may be to these previous versions of you. And I will say, Doreen, so much of that is eerily familiar. And I have never, I mean, I would have no reason other than this conversation to share this particular story. That's not true. I thought about sharing it earlier in the podcast. And I actually was telling you before we recorded, I called my mom before we recorded this. And I was like, okay, here's what's happening. I need your consent about talking about any of this. And her reply to me was, I'm not ashamed of it. And it's your story. It's my story. And it was beautiful. And say what you want. Um, and so I'll tell you a shortened version of my story here. So um my dad died when I was 3. And I grew up knowing he was 21 years older than my mom. So my mom was 36 and he was 57. I knew that I had 2 sisters from a previous marriage from him, and my mom had 3 girls. So together I had 5 sisters, all, at least 9 years older than me. And then the older two were just a couple of years younger than my mom.
Okay.
And so he died when I was 3. And so my entire childhood was um uh, celebrated about their love story. My mom told me beautiful stories of their love, and it was just this fairy tale, and she wanted me to know him. And then when I got older, you say, your daughter being 7 and how that was such a pivotal thing. I remember when my daughter Sailor turned 3, which was when my dad died.
Oh,
And I remember that being so pivotal because I could say definitively that if something were to happen to me at that point, she wouldn't remember me because I didn't remember my dad.
mm,
And my mom did such a good job as I was growing up of telling me stories for me to create this image of him in my mind with photos and beautiful. I mean, she couldn't have done it any better. Like I grew up knowing everything was so beautiful. And my older sisters, our relationship was definitely different than the 3 younger ones because I didn't grow up with the 2 older ones. They had families, they were married. The 3
yeah.
younger sisters, we lived in the house. Yes, they were older, 13, 11, and 9 when I was born. That's how old they were. So I was like their baby, right? They were infatuated with me. Everyone wanted to play with the baby and, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I remember going to my older sister's mom's house for like Sunday dinners and stuff. And she was such a lovely woman to me, so kind, so inviting and welcoming. And I just felt really loved, right? And as time went on, my mom tell me all these stories and they started not making a ton of sense, right? As I got older. And I was just like, I I I think I have questions, but I don't have anyone to ask, right? There's things that aren't checking out. You told me this, but then you like in passing said this and I'm like, "Wait a minute. I cling to these stories so tightly that when they don't like 2 plus 2 is not equaling 4, I'm like alarm bells are going off for me, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't remember the exact age that I found out uh, the fact that it was an affair. But I do remember in my mid 20s, I mean, I'd been married for a couple of years, but it was way before I had my daughter. I was probably 26 or something like that.
Mhm.
I went home and I grew up kind of as an only child. My sisters all were grown and they were out of the house. And my mom and I had a very, very close relationship, still do. And
Yeah.
I felt comfortable asking her questions. So there was this one day we were out by the pool. It was just her and I. And everyone listening to this can understand that like moments alone with your mother with no kids or no siblings or no one around is so sacred and so
Yeah.
rare. So we had this beautiful day of like being out in the pool on our little noodles and floating around and just the two of us and talking. And she said something and I was just like, this is the moment. And I said, Mom, I have a lot of questions
Uh,
and I want to ask, and things aren't really making sense and I've never had the chance to ask you, can I ask questions? And she said she was like, don't ask me anything you don't want an honest answer to. She was like, I'll tell you the truth, but make sure you think about it before you ask me because you're grown now, right? And oh God, love her for what she did that day. However, it was traumatizing. It was traumatizing to find out the details that my
yeah.
dad was married. They had a multiple year love affair while he was married. Um, and and he only got divorced a couple of months before I was born. And then they got to live, 3 blissful years before he died, but then he was gone, right? He died and it was tragic and there are a lot of other details mixed in there that I won't go into, but I so much of that I had to go back and make sense of the childhood versions of like going to my sister's mother's house for these Sunday dinners and me thinking back of like, oh my God, I'm like the child that broke up her marriage. Holy shit. And she was so
Yeah.
kind and nice to me. And my mother will kill me for using this term. But I would be like, I was the bastard child that
Oh,
like broke up this marriage. And I mean, what other term is there for that, right?
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it was, and my mom was a single mom. Um, she has a boyfriend, but she was still very much a single mother. And I think, you talking about how that plays into your adult life. I mean, our childhoods are the way we see the world, right? The way we grow up, the way our parents, and we have the
Yeah.
luxury, our generation, of getting to have these existential crisis and like, do all this deep diving because we have that luxury, right? Their generation was very much survival, right? We're figuring it out.
Wow.
And I was at that age in my 20s when I first found out, I was upset with her in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I judged her, and I what I learned over time and a lot of self-work was that I was still seeing her as my mother instead of a woman.
Yeah.
And there was a clear distinction of when I took her off that pedestal of, oh my God, you have to be perfect because you're my mom. And she just became a woman who was in love and didn't know how to handle it and didn't know what the right thing was to do and just
Yeah.
trusted her instincts. And for me, you talking about your daughter turning 7, for me, it was when I turned 36 because that
Okay.
was the year that I was born. She was 36 when I was
Oh,
born.
okay. Yeah.
And so when I turned 36, it was such a significant year for me because it was like, if I were in that position right now, I don't know what the fuck I would do. Right? I
Right.
can't say that I would make any better of a decision than she did. She was in love, right? They had a beautiful, and the details of it is he wasn't in a blissful marriage. They were in separate bedrooms. They were, content. And it wasn't like it, his wife knew about my mom,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
there were a lot of details in there that took it out of being this sordid, affair
Yeah.
into it semantics, right? Like the world's not black and white. There were a lot of details that didn't check out. But for me, I you talk about the relationship with your husband and you talk about seeing him with your girls. And I do think that I was meant to have a daughter to heal that part of me, which for you it was times 3, right?
Yeah.
And the relationship with my husband, one of the things that I've always struggled with is the idea that men will leave. Men will not be there. You'll have to figure it out on your own, and something's going to happen to them. And for me, because my dad died, it kind of goes to that. Like, it's not like he's necessarily going to choose to leave me, but, something could happen, and I've got to be prepared
Yes.
to raise my daughter by myself because that's what I know. Right. And I see you shaking your head. So, is that super familiar for you?
I can't believe I am like, I have goosebumps all over my body because I could relate to every word coming out of your mouth. Like, I have the same relationship with my mother. We are like two peas
Mm,
in a pod. I adore her. I respect her. I look back and I say, I don't know what decisions I would make. I can't sit, like I said, on some high horse and say, oh, you should have done it this, or you should have never
mm,
done that, or you should, we can't do that. And I can totally relate to everything you're saying. And I just like so she got divorced, then I get I don't know where I came the timing of it all, but it's like, and then she got remarried, and my stepfather, who I never called to my stepfather because they got married when I was 3,
mm. Wow.
and I was like, you're my dad, whatever it is.
Mm,
I have a younger brother and younger sister that are his biological children, and they got separated. And one day, I would help him pick out his tie every morning for work and the tie collection. And then one day he was gone. And
mm,
I was like, okay, so nothing is permanent, and don't rely on other people. You got to be on your own. And when I met Connor, I mean, Charlie, when I tell you, like, I was like, you don't need to open the door for me. I can
mm,
make my own reservations. I'm good. I buy my own. It was like, I was like thinking like, I don't need, because I can't rely on you. So I never want to be in a position where I'm crushed or I'm devastated because you're gone. and I had up this wall and I just was like, because my mother, same thing, was a single mom and I saw her do it all on her own, take out the garbage, do this, do that. And I was like, I could do that. That's the way to be. Like just strong ass woman so no one can hurt you. And it's not really realistic because you don't let anybody in. And I do. I always have this thing, and Connor will tell me all the time. And I mean, I love this man. I am so blessed. And I say every day I'm trying not to get emotional. He he is a gift to me. I believe in, I'm a Catholic, I believe in God, and I think he is just a gift. Like God was like, I'm going to show you that there are good men and they will stand by your side and they will be wonderful fathers and providers, but they'll also be your partner
Mm.
and your best friend and someone who wants to see you succeed, is not in competition with you, will lift you up and will be there for you. And he says to me all the time, I I will always choose you and I will always be there for you and I will never leave. I'm not going anywhere. And that's important because like when my stepfather passed away, he left everything to his natural born children. And it crushed me because I was like, but wait, you walked me down the aisle. I always chose you. I never chose anyone else. Like you were my dad. I never even said the word stepdad. Like you were my dad. And at the end of the day, and I can't go back and ask him. I mean, he's gone. You didn't choose me. Why didn't you choose me? Because I chose you. And I think that that's something that we have to sit with. And that was like another journey in my life, another thing that I had to, it brought up such yuck, like such
Mm.
horrible things and tears, like real serious, like, oh my gosh, I am sobbing from a place like in my gut that that childhood stuff does come back up. And I was just like, ooh, like that hurts not to be chosen and you don't know why. And I think that, like I said, really sits with me with everything that I do. And I always want to make other people feel special. And I tell my husband every day how much I like adore him. Even like even when we get annoyed with each other, at the end of the day, I'll be like, I love you. Like I really love
Mm.
you. Like I love you. And he's like, I know, I know you do. But I just can resonate so much with that. Like, are you gonna leave? Then I don't
Mm.
want to get attached to you. And that's, you can't, it's hard, right? You can't
Oh
live
my
life like
God. So
that.
much of that. Doreen, I feel like we are this is eerie to me to hear, and I'm sure for you too. When I met Colby, I was 20. I mean, I've been with Colby my entire adult life.
Yeah, me too.
And when I was 20, I remember saying to him, like, I hope you're ready to be a house husband because I'm going places and I don't
Yeah.
need you for shit. And that is exactly like how I went into our relationship. And God love him because he was so patient and like,
Yeah.
that's fine. Like, you can be in charge. That's totally fine. And I make jokes sometimes where, if he and I are together in like a group setting and I get into a heated conversation, he just sits back and he's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like y'all figure this out, but I'm not stepping on any toes. Like I know not to step over her because it was ingrained in me as being raised by a single mom. And I'm sure all of my sisters who were raised by my mother, have a different outlook on that. But for me it was almost it was to my detriment in a lot of ways in my marriage. And it took my husband being so patient and willing and giving me so much grace for me to navigate that because the typical we live in the South, right? So the typical hierarchy of a family down here in a lot of families is the dad is in charge, right? Oh hell no, not my house.
Yeah.
Not never, right? And so that's how I was raised, right? And so and he did not care. He did not need to have and I'm so appreciative of him because he never to this day makes the decision without my input. Like it always comes to the table and he's like, what are you, even when I was a stay-at-home mom and not making any money, he would not spend a dime without coming to me and still, so I needed a partner like that to heal that relationship with men for me to show me that they're not going to leave, but also I can trust them and I can lean on them and I can allow them. It was almost like submission is not the word that I want to use, but it
Yeah.
was almost like not feeling like I needed to be the alpha in every situation as a protective mechanism because I
Yes.
was safe, right? And
Yes.
you talk about your dad, your stepdad leaving and the siblings and him leaving stuff to them, one of my biggest triggers is feeling left out.
Yeah.
And I was not able to articulate that until the past couple of years. And it was because something came up within my marriage that I was like, I can't identify what this feeling is, but
Yeah.
it's not jealousy and it's not all of these things. I've got to go deeper because I've got to figure out what this is, being like my own therapist type of thing.
Yeah.
And I took it all the way back with like coaching exercises and meditations and all of these things of figuring out that it was so deeply rooted in childhood. Um and and I say this, we all have our own stories, and it doesn't mean that there's anybody who was in the wrong. It was just our perception and perspective of how it all played out. And for me, it was very much tangled in with my siblings, feeling so separated from them because I was so young. And I was actually just saying this at dinner the other night. My daughter looks just like my husband.
Yeah.
I don't look like anybody in my family. There are pictures. All of my sisters are half Cherokee Indian. They all
Oh,
have
wow.
dark skin, dark hair. They're shorter. Blonde hair, green eyes. And they all have really cool Indian names. And so
Yeah.
when I was younger, I would say, like, oh, well, my Cherokee name is Charlotte. It's Cherokee for white girl. Kidding, but I like had to have some sort of tie-in because they had all these cool names, and
Yeah.
they had great tans, and I was so jealous and like all of that stuff, right? But then my older two sisters, we didn't really have a relationship past a certain point. And for
Yeah.
me as a kid, that was a big wound for me. I mean, I still carry it to this day of like, well, why? What did I do? Why didn't they? What was it because of me or was it because of how I got here? So much of what you were saying, I'm like, I was
Yeah.
just a kid, and I look at my daughter now, she's 7, and that was around the age where the relationship stopped because right after my dad died, one of my sisters would spend a lot of time with me on the weekends. It was almost like having shared custody, I remember, which
Yeah.
was, it's so funny to think back. She'd take me to her house for breakfast and to her mom's house. But then after a couple of years, it stopped. And I don't remember why, but I was probably around Sailor's age. And I think to myself, and I've said this about my daughter too, it's a privilege to be in my daughter's company. And if you
Yes.
see it as any other way, we don't need you, right? I'm doing that for myself, right?
Yes.
I'm saying that to myself as a 7-year-old girl. If no one else wanted to be a part of your life, that's their loss, right? It was
Yes.
never mine. But
Yes.
I get to heal through my daughter in these moments of them happening in real time, but me being like, oh, but the lesson here is really for me.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
it's so cool. And I'm sure with your three
It- it-
girls, I can only imagine how many times that comes up for you.
So that's so crazy that you said that because so my biological father is not part of my life. And I made that decision when I want to say when my oldest daughter, I forgot what age she was. She was pretty young. But I noticed, I was like, wow, wait a minute. How come you never come visit us?
Mm,
How come it's always me coming to you or me calling you or you would take your other grandchildren places, but not my kids. If we're going even Steven here, if we're trying to start this forging this relationship now that everybody knows, um, why is that not happening? you know? And I will throw back real quick and give a shout out as you did. His wife, which was my brother and sister on that side, when they wanted me part of their lives, she was so gracious.
Mm.
She was such an amazing person. And I'm sad because like I don't see her anymore because of this whole process, but
Mhm.
I decided the same as you. Wait a minute. I always was like, well, what about me as a kid? What about me? Can you come see me in the show? I have the lead. I'm the big dancer. I have a solo. Oh, I'm singing the anthem at a game. Can you come see me? Like trying to do all these amazing things so that I would be chosen. And now I was like, wait a minute. You're not choosing me again. And I will not let you do that to my children. My daughter does not need to know that feeling of, oh, I'm being, like you said, left out, or I'm not being chosen, or why am I different? Because she doesn't need to know that. She has a loving father, an amazing, like my mother, their nonna, like loves the world out of them. And that's so I said, no, unless you make us a priority and you start to put in the effort, which is not the old school like Italian mentality. He was like, no, 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 you come to me, you do for me. And I was like, no, because actually I don't owe you anything.
Mm.
I owe you nothing. That was all on my mom. Like she was like, no, no, like we're gonna live our lives so that you never have to feel beholden to anyone, which again, we got to work through.
Mhm.
But I said, no, you can't be part of our lives anymore. I'm not going to do that.
Mm.
And he's not. And he's not. And I agree. To get to know my children is a privilege. To have them and be part of their lives is a privilege. And if you, like you said, if you don't see it like that, then that's okay. We don't need you because we're okay. We're all right. And it's
Mm.
so crazy how I could 100% relate to that because I remember my husband saying, this has to be your decision. I can't help you with this because you really have to work through this. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like I I choose not to be this like the second, the other, there's no need for that. And there's no need for my children to ever feel that way. So we were
Mm.
like, thank you, but no thank you. So they're aware and like they're now 13, no, what are we now? We're 14, 13, and 11. And I swear they get to like a certain number and I'm like, no more growing. I refuse to acknowledge that number. So they know, they're all aware that he is alive and that he is out there. And they don't have like Connor's parents passed at a young age. So they don't have grandparents on that side. All they have is my mom and they know that there's someone out there that is their grandfather, but I told them the story straight away. This is how I found out who I am. This is my life. These are the things that I've chosen. And they're like, we're with you, mom. And I'm like, oh, thanks guys. Thank you.
I think I mean I had to fight back some tears with that share because so much of that I relate to. And I think that had I not had my daughter, I would never have felt the need or the security in setting boundaries like that with the people around me. And I do it in order to protect her in so many ways. She's the catalyst for that.
Yeah.
And I think, what you said about, how many grandparents they have. Like this idea of this nuclear family of a mom and a dad and two sets of grandparents or even four sets of grandparents, right? For divorced kids. Uh, yeah, that's some people's story. That's not our story for our daughter. And I think that the biggest message there, because there's been a lot of, I mean, honestly, during this recording, and I'll share more after we finish recording, but this is such a crazy, perfect time for this stuff to come up. And
Yeah.
I think that the biggest thing for me is for her to feel chosen, for
Yes.
her to feel appreciated and loved. It's not about how many grandparents she has or how many people she has out there checking a box. It's the quality over the
Yeah.
quantity. And my mom has been incredible. And you know what I think too, everyone has their own childhood trauma, right? Like obviously not everyone has this story that we so crazily, have in common.
Yeah.
But I think for me and maybe for you too, it's given me such a great perspective on life
Yeah.
and adulthood and how mistakes are not only expected but necessary to make
Mhm.
within your life and to give yourself grace and acceptance for those because it's part of the human experience is that nothing's perfect. You have to take risks, you have to take chances, whether it's with love or career or whatever. And I give myself permission to explore things that if I didn't have this childhood, right, that I wouldn't understand so innately. And it also, like you've said multiple times about supporting other women, that's my whole career is coaching
Yes.
women.
Yes.
And it's so much of I've been this person, this coach my entire adult life. I just did not call it that and I didn't build a business around it and all the things, but I have this innate ability per my childhood, right? It's my strength uh,
Mhm.
over everything to
Yes.
see the world without having a tainted perspective of like, this is life, right? It's a series of choices and
Uh-huh.
none of them are wrong, but they all have consequences in their own right. And you go with your intuition. That's your superpower. It may not look great on paper, but that's not the point. And like even I said at the beginning of this, I called my mom and asked her for her consent. And one of the things she said to me is she said, I don't regret a second of it. It was the greatest love affair of my life. And I would never have done it any differently. Um, and I even saying that out loud, on paper, in black and white, it is
Yeah.
one way, but in real life, it is vastly different. And that's life. Like nothing's black and white. It's all perspective and all of these things, right? And this has been wildly cathartic to talk about.
Yeah. And that's why
Um,
I love what you do too. I love what you do. I love that you have this forum and you allow people to share and really, because a lot of times I feel as women in general, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be the best mom, the best wife, to be the best in our career, to always look a certain way or act a certain way. And we don't give ourselves enough grace. And that is like the word that I'm like living by, learning as every year. I feel like every day, sometimes every moment. And I've realized even with my girls, it's so like just what's the word? Cathartic. Like it's so
mm,
just to say, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, I shouldn't have, that, but I learned from it. Like, let's learn from, mom's mistake here. I don't always handle things the right way. Sometimes I'm very passionate about things and it like I'm like, reel it in. Maybe I should have thought about that before I said it. But I said, let's learn. And life, and I say to this all the time, and I repeat it to myself. We learn and grow from our mistakes. We read all the time about like how many people failed at their businesses until they decided to be like, well, I failed at that, I failed at that, I failed at that, but look at this success story. Look at what I did here. They wouldn't have gotten there had they not made those mistakes. And I've never been one, and this is like an attribute to my grandmother, another incredibly strong woman in my life that completely shaped me. She was like, no, 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 we don't wallow in the self pity and say, what about poor me, I didn't have a dad, like poor me. She's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to learn and we're going to grow. And if you don't learn from the mistakes that people around you are making or your parents have made or whatever, then you're not growing. And we should always grow, even if it's
mm,
in a small way. Learn and grow. And I take that with me every day. And I think that that's why I love, like, you have this forum. I love what you do. You're helping women and just people in general learn from other people's stories, from
mm,
other people's mistakes that have turned into growth. And I say with conviction, I would not be Charli who I am had I not come from this situation. I don't
mhm,
think I would look at life as the way that I do. I'm just so grateful.
Mm.
That's the word. Like every day, I'm so grateful.
Mm.
And for my husband, for my talents, for my ambition, maybe I wouldn't have been so ambitious or done or taken the chance to dream so many dreams because I was like, nothing is out of reach. I'm
Mm.
just gonna try. I wanted to work at 17 magazine. I just put my resume out, applied to be, like I love Z100. I was like, I love that radio station. I'm gonna be an intern. And I was like, okay. I put my resume in and I was like, what have you got to lose? You have nothing to lose. And I say that to my girls all the time. I say, get out there on the stage and dance your heart out. You have
Mm.
nothing to lose and everything to gain from what you learn from these experiences. And I think it's incredible to see how it's shaped you and how you're now going on to help other people and really learn from the things that you've worked through. And we both work through these things and we continue to, right? I'm sure there are going to be
Mm.
situations that come up with our daughters
Yeah.
that we're like, ooh, that strikes something. Like, I wonder what that's coming from or what that is. But that's how we grow. That's how we learn. And I feel like that's how we become, better humans. And we are blessed with our husbands that have given us that grace. I laugh because Connor's one of seven. And his dad, they're Irish Catholic family. And I remember when his dad said to him, I don't know. I mean, she's lovely, but she's very career focused, very ambitious. Like, I don't know if she's going to be that, like, a mom. Will she want to stay home with your child? Like, he was like, that was what he wanted for his son. He's like, I want you to have like a partner. I want you to. And Connor was like, no, she's got a big heart and like she's really ambitious though. And he says to this day, my ambition and how I was working because I'm 3 years older than him. He was like, I just wanted to be more, do more, push myself harder, just to be like, not to keep up with me, but to be like, look what she's doing. Like, I want to go for that job. I'm not going to take this job just because it was handed to me. I'm going to push myself and go for that bigger one or that promotion or whatever. And that's amazing that we can have men in our lives, and I guess like I said, they're gifts for what we've
Yeah.
experienced and a nice realization that you don't and the best thing is whenever my mom comes, she will like never sit down. Her thing, we always laugh because she's always like, I can do it. And we laugh and we're like, we know you can, no, we know you can do it. But Connor goes to her all the time. This is a struggle for my mom. And I see this and I see, wow, I'm so different now because I've had Connor. She didn't have a Connor. She didn't have that person. So she never sits down and never relaxes. And he goes, no, no, just because you can do it doesn't mean you need to. Sit down, relax with Doreen, relax with the kids. And I got the garbage. I got
Mm.
it. Like, I will order, I will make the reservation, I will cook for you, I will just relax. We want
Mm.
to take you. And she's like, this is so foreign to me. Like, but I had to learn that. And I say to my mom all the time, I said, I had to learn over the years to accept that
Mm-hmm.
because I just thought I had to be the first one up in the morning and I had to be, could never sleep in and I always have to be moving and doing. And, he taught me how to just be, how to just relax. We don't always need to be doing something, proving ourselves, working out every 5 seconds, like just be. And
Mm-hmm.
that's growth. I think that's hard for a lot of us women.
Yeah. I have moments sometimes where I'm like, oh my God, I'm too comfortable. My mom
Yeah.
did not raise this version. Like I remember I went back to nursing school and this, I don't know if I've ever shared this story, but um when I met Colby, I was in college. I got a bachelor's degree in communication and psychology. And then we started like moving with his job. Like his job. And every time we moved, I started a brand new career, right? Every different city. And I remember I had this realization and I was very honest and upfront with him about it. And I'm like, my mother did not raise me to follow a man around the country, like, period. Right. And I remember saying to him, and this is so funny, but at the time I was so serious, and it is serious. But I said to him, I said, if something happened to me, if I got hit by a bus, nothing about your life would change except you'd have to do your own laundry, cook your own food, clean your own house, but
Yeah.
you'd still be able to pay your bills and do all this stuff. If something happened to you, I could not survive. I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. My job is insignificant compared to yours. And and I was so honest with him about it because I was like, this is scary. This is so scary. And he was like, okay, well, what do we do? I went to nursing school. I went to
Wow.
nursing school and became an RN because I wanted to do it, right? I don't want to take anything away from that. I was very
Yeah.
called to do it, but I also needed to know that I had something to land on if something were to happen to him because it is a fear of mine. But when you
Yeah.
have a fear, you protect yourself from it because sometimes
Absolutely.
it's a way of protecting you to just prepare you for it, right?
Yeah.
So I went and I have an RN license that I can go and get a job anywhere at any time if I need to and support myself. And that was my mother coming out in me. And so there are still moments that come up for me where I'm like, "Oh shit, he's done this for years. I forgot how to do it. That's not
Yes.
how I was raised, right? Like,
Oh
holy
my
shit.
gosh.
Like how oh my god, I got to learn how to do this again. What if you do get hit by that bus and then I don't I forget all the shit you do around here?"
I know. I know. I laugh all the time. I used to travel when I worked at BCBG. I traveled every month, like, oh my gosh, to LA, back and forth, visiting all my accounts. Now, when I go to the
Mm.
airport, it's like if I'm not tethered to this man, I'm not what to do with passport, what to do. Like,
We're
I'm
crippled.
that girl in the airport that's like, la 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 la. Like, I
Yeah,
just
I don't
follow.
know where I'm going, but I'm going to follow him. Yes.
What game is it? I don't know. When do we have the I but it's so funny. But at the same time, I was like, I only realized this when he went away on a business trip and he's like, come meet me. He was in Nashville. I'd never been. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, oh my, I'm a disaster. Like, I'm stressed. How early do I have to be there? Like, what
I'm
am I
there
doing
2
with
hours ahead of time just to make sure I can find my gate. Yeah. Yeah.
I literally like didn't want to leave to get a bottle of water because I was like, no, I can't leave. Like, what happens if they call it? Like, it was like I'd never done it before.
Oh my
But at the
god.
same time, it was so nice, and he loved it. When I said to him, I was like, a disaster at the airport without you. Like, I don't like this. I like walking and not having to think. Like, this is so nice. And he takes pride in that. And he goes, I
Mhm.
love that I can be that for you. You never let anybody do these things for you. Like, I love that I can be that for you. And I'm like, yay, go me. Like that I'm okay to say that now. Like I'm okay. And there are days, I mean, he laughs. Sometimes he just looks at me and he's like, okay. There are days that I'm still like, oh, you're like, he has his own business. And I'm like, you're doing so great. Like, I sold my business, but I'm not like bringing in the money that I used to. And I'm
Mhm.
not, should I go get a job? Should I go get and he's like, oh my God,
Mm.
no, we talked about this like at length, but still I go back to those moments of like, I need to be making money. I need to be your partner. I need to be your equal. And he's like, do you realize this house would fall apart without you? How am I going to get the girls to dance?
Mhm.
The things that you do in a day for all of us, you help me with my business. You do my social media. You do these people's social media. Like it's not your typical 9 to 5 or whatever it is. And you don't have your own business per se, but you kind of do. And we
Mm.
need you. And we like having you here. We don't want you somewhere else. But it takes a second. Like you said, it takes me a minute to be like, okay, yes, you're right.
Oh, oh yeah. My mother's daughter rears her head often in
Yeah.
varying
Mhm.
ways. And I had a woman on here not too long ago. I don't think I don't know when the episode's going to air, but she's a single mom and she wasn't raised by a single mom, and she was talking about not knowing how to do it and how it may be affecting her kids. And I was like, look, from a child of a single mom, let me just go ahead and help you. There's something so beautiful and specific about being raised by an only mom as a daughter because it gives you a permission to be out in the world to a certain degree because
Yeah.
you have this authority and you are innately assertive to some degree. And you see
Yeah.
that because as a single mom, you don't have a choice. And so your kids grow up seeing that version of a grown woman, and that's what it is, right? Now, granted, to my detriment sometimes, but I figure out how to reel that in as it comes.
Yeah.
But there is such a gift to that of anyone listening to this. If you are a single mom, your kids will be good. They will,
Yeah.
because it's their story, and you can't, there is no perfect way to raise your children. It's their story, and when you know better, you do better. That was one thing my mom would always say to me, like, I didn't know better, I do now. And when you
Yeah.
know better, you do better.
That's so true.
And oh my God, Doreen, I could sit here and talk to you for like 3 more
All
hours
day.
about this. But for the sake of time and anyone listening to this, I do want to wrap it up. But I want to ask you. So I named the podcast the Hype Squad because I gave clients the hype list assignment. So what it is really just a way to motivate yourself to brag and be full of yourself and your accomplishments, because that's the whole idea here, is that we don't talk highly enough about ourselves. We don't brag enough about ourselves. So I would
Yeah.
love to hear something you would like to share that you can brag about. It can be about what we've already talked about or something totally random, but something you're really proud of accomplishing, and maybe even an obstacle you had to overcome in order to do that.
Oh, okay. Let's think. I think I would say, well, we talked a little bit about, I think I was really, really proud of, was really proud of the studio. I was proud of what it stood for, that it was more than dancing. It was about building kids' self-confidence. And I would always say, I don't care if they don't, they're not on Broadway or So You Think You Could Dance. If that kid goes to a high school dance, a middle school dance, or
Mm,
a wedding, and be able to get out there without having to drink too much, because a lot of dads would come up to me and be like, I wish I had this when I was a kid. I can't
mm,
get out on a floor now unless I kick back a few and loosen up. But I was so proud of everything that it stood for and how it gave back to the community. And I love that it's still standing. It was hard for me, I will say, on the front side of it, to balance that and motherhood. That was really hard for me in the beginning, but I knew it was like for a reason. I was like, I'm going to learn so much from this. And I think selling it was really hard for me. I had to realize that it was not my identity. It did
mm.
not, I was, part of, it was a co-owned business. It was Dance on the DL. I was the D. My partner was the L. And I was like, everybody knows me as Doreen from DL, Doreen. And I was like, that it's not, that doesn't define me. If anything, I'm so proud of myself for realizing I'm so much more than just that. And now when I did sell it, my girls were like, Mom, we're so happy. We're so happy that we just have you, and we don't need you to be Miss Doreen. We don't need you to be part of something. Like you're everything to us. And that was like really a big thing for me to be able to say, I am. I don't need the business. I don't need that. I could just be me.
Mm.
And that's a beautiful, really beautiful thing to sit with. And with everything that we talked about, it was a real journey to get there. But I'm the happiest I have ever been in my life where I am at now.
Oh my gosh. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. That was beautiful to hear. I feel like my face is starting to hurt from smiling so much because
Yeah.
this has been such a good
I know.
conversation.
Yes.
Um, and honestly, I really needed this. Thank you for this. This was great. Obviously I'll share all the ways to follow you and connect with you and get all the outfits that you share, because oh my gosh, you share the best things.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for coming and doing this with me and getting hyped with us. Thank you everyone listening, for getting hyped with us today, and be kind to yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for
Bye.
having me.